Okay, the differences between transformational leadership style with a charismatic leadership style. So, charismatic leadership style normally places more emphasis on the way leaders communicate, whether they are passionate, whether they are dynamics. So, it's emphasize more on the traits of leaders in terms of the way they communicate, this the way they show their facial expressions, their gesture, their intonations, emotion, and so on. However, transformational leadership style focusing more on what they are communicating. So the transformational leadership style focusing more on the content. Charismatic leadership style focusing more on the way or on the way leader communicates, not on the contents. But transformational leadership focusing more on what they are communicating. That's mean on the content, whether it is it appealing or whether it is not. So if the content has a compelling visions, then it is more effective. We consider the leaders who are focusing more on contents is called transformational leadership style. However, both focus on the leader's ability to inspire followers, but they focusing more on different things, like charismatic on the way they communicate, this one on the what they are communicating, that's mean on the content. So authentic leader, to know whether they are some leaders are authentic or not, that means some leaders are genuine or not. So authentic leaders normally know who they are. They know who they are, what they want, or why they are doing that in terms of becoming a leaders, and know what they believe in and the values, and they also act on those values and believe openly and candidly. And as a result, people come to have faith in them because they are genuine, because they are authentic in their approach. They know who they are, believe in themselves, and they have values. So as a result, people come to have faith. I mean, people become confident in them. So that's what it says, authentic leaders. Ethical leadership. Ethics and leadership is very closely related. So ethics touch on the leadership at a numbers of juncture. For example, leaders who treat their followers with fairness, especially by providing trust, honesty, honest, frequent, and accurate information, are seen as more effective. Leaders also must be willing to express their ethical belief and persuade their followers, or in the organizations, managers need to persuade their employees to follow certain orders, to follow certain standards, and so on. So leaders also need to set high ethical standards. So leaders need to set the example, set a high ethical standards, and demonstrate them through their own behavior. So leaders is like the working example of having ethical behavior. So, and they also need to encourage and reward integrity in others while avoiding abuses of power. So they have to show the example by setting high ethical standards, and they follow through. That means they themselves behave like what they inspire others to be ethical. They also behave ethically, and they reward those who behave ethically, and they punish those who violates the ethical standards, and they also avoid abuse, involve in abuse of power. So leaders that rate high as leaders rate as highly ethical tend to be very positively rated by subordinates. So whether it is subordinates or employees or followers, they are looking for the leaders who are ethical, who can be trusted, who because leaders come with power, so they need to be followers need to trust their leaders. So leaders need to take this trust as something precious, something privileged. So they have to have they have to behave ethically, and they have to demonstrate that they have to be a good example to the followers in terms of following ethical standards, ethical behavior, and so on. So if leaders are showing good or high ethical standards, subordinates or followers will evaluate them positively, and subordinates and followers also will feel more satisfied and more committed in performing the job, and also they will experience less strains. That means less stress, less burnout, and this could also reduce their intention to resign or intention to leave, or in other words, turnover intention. So ethics, like I mentioned, ethics and leadership is closely related. So the integrations of ethics in charismatic leadership style is called socialized charismatic leadership. So charismatic leadership, I mentioned in previous slides that those who have charismatic leadership style may have some narcissistic traits. So it is important for the charismatic leaders and also any other leaders to be ethical. So those leaders with charismatic style and ethics is called socialized charismatic leadership. So leadership that convey other-centered values by leaders who model ethical behavior. So what it says by socialized charismatic leadership is integrations when the leaders integrates the charismatic traits with the ethical traits or ethical standards. Abusive supervisions. This is also very common in many research or in the real life, where the supervisor or the leaders or the managers are actually abusive. So abusive supervision referring to the perceptions that a supervisor is hostile or aggressive in terms of their verbal and non-verbal behavior. So there are many dire consequences. That mean many direct bad effects of abusive supervisions. First is negative effects of health on employees or on followers. And also these having abusive supervisions or supervisor will lead to increased depressions among their followers, among the subordinates or among their employees, emotional exhaustions, burnouts, and job tensions perception. So these are the negative effects of having abusive supervisor or abusive leaders. So abusive supervisions also leads to decrease in organizational commitment, job satisfaction, and perceived organizational support, along with the increased with family conflicts. Of course, if you're having abusive supervisor or abusive leaders, you wouldn't want to work for the company that have this kind of abusive leaders. And you also will have low job satisfaction, because you go to the office, you go to work, and you've been abused by your leaders, you've been attacked by your leaders, either verbally or non-verbally, maybe through their language, body language, or through spoken language. So this also will decrease employees' commitment to the jobs and also performance. And also will relate to the work-family conflict. That means they do not want to go to work. They also may have conflict at home because of problem they experience at work can brings that kind of problem to their family, in the relationship with the families. So abusive supervision also can adversely affect employee performance and other employees' behavior, because you cannot concentrate having abusive supervision, supervisor, leaders, and so on. This will affect your performance and other behaviors related to work or work setting. Moving to servants leadership. Servant leadership, from the name servant, that means leaders serve the needs of others. So servant leadership, that means leaders focusing on serving the needs of others. Research found out that research has focused on this outcome, found out that those servant leaders are good for the well-being of their followers. Servant leaders also can go beyond their self-interest and instead focusing more on the followers' interest, They want to help followers to grow and develop. So there are servant leaders are normally sincere. They're not focusing on their self-interest, but they're focusing more on the interest of the followers. So characteristics, behaviors of servant leaders include listening. They listen to the problems of their followers. They empathize with the followers, what the followers experience. For example, what the people out there experience when they have this kind of problems. They also persuasive in their approach. They also accept stewardship. That means if people want to guide them, give them some suggestions, give them opinions, ideas, how to improve something, so they would listen to those kind of opinions, and they actively develop followers' potential. So they also want to their followers to grow and then develop, so to become to have potential for the betterments, for the developments of their futures, and so on. So positive trust and leaderships are, you all know that trust is very important for the leaders. So if followers trust the leaders, it's an indication of good signs of good leadership. If the followers didn't trust the leaders, there's something wrong with the leaders. So trust is a psychological state that exists when you agree to make yourself vulnerable. So when you trust others, so that means you yourself vulnerable, make yourself vulnerable to others. When you trust others, that means you give a trust to others. That means you make yourself vulnerable to others because you have positive expectations about how things are going to turn out. So when the followers trust the leaders, they make themselves vulnerable to the leaders because they believe they have high expectation or positive expectations about the leaders, how leaders could be able to produce something or to come up with something good. So a primary attributes associated with leadership. So trust is a primary attribute associated with good leadership. So when trust is broken, it can have a serious adverse impact on the performance or on the performance of the group or performance of the company. So it is important for the trust when the followers trust the leaders, they make themselves vulnerable. So they expect something good. They expect the leaders wouldn't break the trust. So transformational leaders do generate higher level of trust from their followers, because transformational leaders, they inspire, they motivate their followers, so they generate trust because the transformational leaders normally genuine in inspiring their followers, in motivating their followers. So transformational leaders normally generate higher level of trust from their followers. So this trust can lead to high level of team confidence among the members, and ultimately high level of team performance as a whole. So that's the importance of trust and leadership. So trust isn't just about the leaders. Trust also needs also among the followers, and what key characteristic lead us to believe whether a leader is trustworthy or not. So in order to consider any leaders as a trustworthy, or whether we can trust the leader or not, we look at these traits: integrity, benevolence, ability. So if the leaders have these three traits: integrity, benevolence, and ability, that means the leaders can be considered as trustworthy leaders. And followers also have high propensity to trust leaders with this kind of characteristics. So when they trust leaders with this kind of characteristics, they're willing to take risks. They will the leaders also indicate that they're willing to take risk. Information, they share the information. This could lead to group effectiveness and productivity. Not only leaders providing this, followers or employees also in effect will willing to take risk if they have this kind of trustworthy leaders. They also, if the leaders share the informations, whether good or bad, they are transparent in sharing the informations. This also can increase followers trust toward the leaders, and this can lead to group effectiveness and increase the productivity as a whole. That means in general. So